So in this video, we're going to learn how to build an effective brand strategy using the 14-step process used by some of the biggest and most loved brands in the world. Let's go. Also guys, before we get started, if you want a free ebook to literally take you through every single step of the brand strategy development process, you can download it in the description right now. Click the link in the description, download it, and it will literally help take you through every single step of the process. Now, when you build a brand for yourself or for a client, essentially what you're doing is you're building an entity which is going to connect a business with a group of people. Now, the first thing that might come to your mind is maybe developing a logo or a brand identity, but first and foremost, you have to understand who your audience is. You have to understand what they want and then devise a plan to actually show them that your business is the best option for them in particular. You have to resonate with them the best out of all of the competitors in your category. So why is a brand strategy so important? Well, if you have products or a service and you want to sell them ultimately to grow your business, then you have to have a strategy to do that effectively. Now, if you think of any team in the world, any professional team, they work on their techniques and they understand who their competitors are, including their weaknesses and their strengths, so they can devise a plan to go out there and beat them. Now, does this mean every single team in the world is successful because they have a strategy? No, that's not the only factor, but does every successful team in the world have a strategy, much like every successful brand in the world has a strategy? 100%. So now you know you actually need a brand strategy, you can just go and whip one up, right? No, not exactly, otherwise I'll be out of a job. However, you can build an effective brand strategy if you simply understand the key principles and the key steps to building one effectively. Many brand owners do not understand how to develop an effective brand strategy. So in this very video, we're going to go through the 14-step process to make sure that you fully understand how to do it every step of the way. Number one, first and foremost, is develop your internal brand. Now, this is a very important first step in the brand building process, and some business owners who actually understand the value of brand strategy tend to skim over this quite quickly. But it's really important that you take this step seriously because it provides a solid foundation for your brand and everything else that's built upon it. If your brand doesn't have a solid foundation, then it's not going to take long for cracks to appear and suddenly for those foundations to break open. Now, your internal brand includes your brand's purpose, your vision, your mission, and your values. It's really important that this stems from the owner or the brand leadership team, simply because this is essentially the entire direction of the brand. It's the reason for the brand existing. So you need to make sure that the long-term view of the brand and where you guys are wanting to go is at the very core of your internal brand messaging. Step number two is to define your target audience. Now, in order for any business in the world today to survive and then potentially thrive, they need to understand how to deliver value to a certain demographic. It's your job as a brand to learn how to communicate effectively with your target audience so that you can ultimately get them to buy from you. You have to understand everything about them, so use every tool at your disposal to paint a picture of who they are, where their pain points are, and what they want. It's really important that you understand the challenges, their pain points, and ultimately get to their emotions as effectively as possible. It's through their emotions that you're really going to be able to understand them, what they want, and how to connect with them best. Step number three is map out your market landscape. If there are a group of people that want what you have, then chances are there are already a group of competitors already serving those people. You need to understand your competitors even better than they understand themselves. And the reason for this is if you understand what your customers already have available to them, then you can learn how to differentiate yourself and stand out in the crowded market that you're looking to compete within. You never want to be in a position where you're simply just offering the same thing. You want to be different. You want to give your audience something that they don't already have the option to buy in the marketplace right now. If you just go out there into the marketplace and just offer the same thing that's already out there, you're literally just contributing to market noise, and you're not going to give your audience everything new, and you're definitely not going to give them a reason to buy from you. Step number four is uncovering your market position. By understanding all this, you can see gaps and opportunities in the market where you would likely be able to fill and really take advantage of in regards to your brand's positioning. You need to understand those gaps and really start asking questions in regards to how you can be either better, more convenient, or essentially just a different option to the rest of the marketplace. You need to give customers a reason to turn their heads. What are you going to give them that's different to the rest of the market, and how are you going to communicate that effectively to inspire them to choose you? Step number 5 is define your brand's personality. So now you know and understand how to deliver value to your audience and where you're going to be different in the market. It's now important that you take a little bit of time to devise a plan to convince them that the value that you can provide them is the value that they want. Now, what we say to our audience is very important, but how we say it is possibly more important. The impact that our message has and how it's resonated and received is all based on the personality and how it's actually communicated. We need to connect with them by showing a little bit of our personality and being a little bit vulnerable. We need to show them who we are and what we are about as a brand. You then need to infuse those characteristics and that personality with your brand's message to really get it across in an effective way. Step number 6 is identify your brand's tone of voice. This is an extension of your brand personality and another opportunity to inject some character and personality into your brand. Now, we are in a content-driven world today, and there is content literally everywhere. We see advertisements, we see social media posts, articles, videos, all that stuff, the list goes on and on. But each one of those is simply just another opportunity for your brand to inject a level of its character and just showcase the personality that is likely going to resonate with the target audience it is looking to connect with. You understand your audience by now, so you know the type of tone of voice and the type of personality that is going to connect with them best. And if you learn how to be consistent with your tone of voice, then you can literally start to really build a reputation and a relationship with your target audience. Therefore, when they have a need for your product or service, guess who they're going to buy from? That's right, they're going to buy from you. Step number 7, develop your messaging strategy. Now, your brand's personality and your tone of voice is how the message is going to be delivered, but the message itself is still very, very important. The message essentially needs to resonate with your target audience, and your messaging strategy is essentially what you're going to deliver to your target audience, but it needs to be said in a way which resonates with them. So if you think about your target audience on a human level, when you're going to be introducing something to them, you need to think in the same way that they do. They're going to be making the decision of whether to buy from you or not subconsciously. So you need to think about, again, what their emotions are, what their needs are, and what their pain points are, so that you can actually deliver a message which is going to activate those particular emotions. This is connected to our reptilian brain, but this is a topic for an entirely different video, so I won't go into it too deeply here. But basically what our reptilian brain does is it helps us make decisions that are based around helping us survive. So that is essentially the first thought that we have when we come into contact with something new and something that we don't really trust just yet. It's the first itch that we need to scratch as a brand with our messaging, and we need to really scratch that itch to make sure that our customers feel comfortable and feel that we are credible to actually delivering on their needs. Secondly as well, we also need to make sure that when we are actually communicating a message, we have to make sure that we are delivering on that promise. Step number 8 is craft your brand story. Now, as humans, we are completely fascinated by stories, and that is simply because it is the primary way for us to pass information from one generation to the next. So it's kind of built into our DNA, and we hear stories everywhere all the time, no matter where we put our attention. It's been proven by neuroscience that we're actually 22 times more likely to remember a story based on information than we are to actually remember fact-based information itself. So if you're able to showcase to your target audience why your brand is different and why they should choose you through the power of story, this is going to be 22 times more impactful than simply just telling them, this is what we do, this is what we do, this is what we do, this is why you should buy from us. Your customers are going to be listening far more intently, and they're also going to be far more engaged. Therefore, they're going to be far more likely to buy from you in future. Step number 9 is to develop your name and tagline. Now, it might actually seem pretty late in the process to start thinking about your brand name and tagline, but to be honest with you, this is actually the perfect time to be thinking about those particular elements of your brand building process. Now, should a business owner like the name of their brand? 100%. But if you think about it, a brand name and a tagline is simply another communication tool and another strategic tool to be able to send a message to your target audience. So to be honest with you, as a business owner, your personal preference shouldn't really matter. Your name and your tagline should essentially plant a seed in the customer's mind, and it should essentially help position you as the brand in the mind of your audience in the way that we've already developed in the previous steps beforehand. So we can take all the information that we've gathered and developed up to this point and use that when developing our brand name and our tagline. That just makes so much more sense. And if we do it this way, then we're going to get far more bang for our buck when people are hearing our brand name and our tagline. Step number 10 is to design your brand identity. Now, this is actually where most business owners start the brand building process. They'll go out into the market and look for a designer to design them a logo, and they'll deem themselves as branded, and they're ready to, go out in the market and dominate, I suppose. But the context of actually designing a logo without actually doing all the steps that we've done beforehand is quite stupid if you think about it. Up until this point, we've actually done around 90% of the work that is necessary to actually bring a brand to life. The strategic work that is almost behind the logo and behind the brand name. So without actually doing all that strategic work, you literally just have a meaningless graphic and a meaningless brand name which has no context and no real relevance to the message that you're trying to portray. But once you have all the strategic side set in motion, you can then begin to learn how to actually showcase that visually through your visual brand identity. So once you understand the strategic side, you can actually start to do things like your logo, pick the correct typography, what type of colors are going to be relevant to the strategy that you're trying to actually live out, what type of images are you going to use, what models are you going to use, how are you going to actually communicate your brand strategy visually. Now, your visual brand identity is very important simply because we are visual creatures, but if we do not have the brand strategy developed beforehand, we are essentially just guessing and just making things look nice, where that can work to some extent, but having an effective plan in place beforehand is going to give you a massive advantage over the competition without any extra effort. You simply just have to put in the effort beforehand to make sure the strategy is in place, and then take that strategy and communicate it effectively through your visual designs, your brand name, and your slogan. Step number 11 is craft your brand's collateral. Now, this is where your brand strategy and your identity come together, and this is like almost like the dressing room for your brand launch. So everything from your purpose to your typography, your color palette, positioning, everything literally comes together and creates your brand's presence in the market. So everything from your website to your brochures and your business cards to your advertisements, everything is needing to be consistent and basically aligned with all of the work that we've did up to now. You need to make sure that everything is consistent at this stage, because your customers are going to be experiencing so many different touch points of your brand at different places at different times. So you need to make sure that no matter how they're engaging with your brand and how they're actually seeing you and where they're seeing you, everything has to be aligned with the message that you're wanting to communicate and communicating it in the same way. So basically just find out where your customers' attention is and where they hang out online. So for example, this could be Facebook groups, certain blogs, forums, all that sort of stuff. It's going to be really beneficial for you to do a little bit of research in regards to that and then put placements or advertise in those particular spaces. This is essentially what a brand awareness strategy is and does. It essentially communicates to your target audience your message in the places where they are spending their time, therefore making them aware of your existence. This is just a really simple way to get your brand out there in the marketplace and have customers aware of what you do and why you do it. Now, you already have your messaging and your visual identity in place. It's simply just a case of finding out where you're going to be presenting that message. Step number 12 is devise your brand awareness strategy. Just make sure you understand where your customers are spending their time and attention, and you're going to be golden. That's simply what brand awareness is all about. You need to allow your customers to realize that you actually exist before they can even consider buying from you. Your brand awareness strategy and your marketing strategy are pretty much the same thing. So just make sure that everything's consistent and you should be golden. Step number 13 is actually launching your brand. So you've done all the hard work here and you've developed all your communication, you've developed your visual identity and your tactical strategy to actually place your messages out there in the market in a place where your customers can see them. Now it's all about executing on the type of budget that you have to get the biggest impact possible. Now, if you've got a little bit of a budget to play with in regards to your marketing strategy, you can start by using things like Google ads and Facebook ads to drive traffic and awareness to your website. You need to start developing content and getting the word out there of what your brand is and what you do through free platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest, and other fantastic social media networks. It needs to be informative, of course, but it also needs to really focus on the customer pain points that they're experiencing. This is going to really encourage them to read your content, trust you, and then eventually buy from you. The fact is, if you don't have the money to get that awareness, then you have to generate the awareness somehow. So your budget will essentially depend on how quickly you can make an impact, but it's important to keep that perspective, and it's also important to determine what success actually looks like within your brand awareness strategy. So it could very well be a hybrid of the two. So you could have some paid advertising if your budget is not that big, but you could also focus on developing some content as well. And doing those two together has actually been proven to have a far bigger impact than just one single approach done on its own. And finally, step number 14 is analyze, review, and evolve. A massive advantage that business owners have today that they didn't maybe 10 or 15 years ago is the amount of data that we have. Right now on our website, using plugins such as Hotjar, for example, we can literally see users on our website, how they're interacting with the design, and make adjustments to our website to simply heighten our conversion rate and get better sales. Even the data we get from Facebook ads is really, really useful. We can literally target a very niche demographic with literally a few clicks of a button and show them a very specific message which is more likely to resonate with them very, very simply. It's important that somebody understands the power of analytics within your team to be able to analyze that data so that you can simply use it to make better decisions moving forward and get the needle moving in the right direction. It's important to optimize all of the data that you actually bring into your business so that you can use it to develop your brand going forward and to essentially serve your customers better. This is even as simple as just putting out adverts and putting out content on social media and seeing what resonates with your target audience best. If one type of post does really well, then obviously do more of that type of content, and if one advert's doing really well, then use that as a foundation to build more adverts like this. Obviously you now have a position in the market and you understand your customers and your competitors to a degree that is respectable so you can actually make effective decisions going forward. So once you understand how to use data, you can actually understand your target audience to a far higher degree, which can help you make better decisions moving forward and essentially help your brand grow far faster. By following this 14-step process, you can literally take your brand from being simply a logo or a brand name to literally becoming an effective brand that can resonate with a target audience very effectively. Remember to click in the description below to get your free brand building ebook to take you through every single step of building an effective brand strategy from start to finish. As always guys, leave a like on the video, it helps us massively with the YouTube algorithm. Leave a comment if you have any questions, I will answer them all personally, and also feel free to subscribe. We have so much content coming over the next couple of months, weeks, days, decades, you know the script. I will see you again in the next video. Take care.